So, let's make some forests with thread and needle today. I'm Rugile from Magical Little Dreams. In this video, I will show you how to make these beautiful tree appliques from our forest quilt behind me. I will share all my tips and tricks to make them perfect every single time. So with no further ado, let's get started. What will we need to make a tree? General sewing equipment, like scissors, washable fabric pen, seam ripper, iron, and of course a sewing machine. We will also need two different fabrics for the trunk and for the crown of the tree, some thread, and an outline. You can find the link to the tree applique outline in the video description below. Additionally to these basic tools and materials, we will also need some lightweight paper-backed fusible web that can be ironed on the fabric and thus can stick two fabrics together. For the tree crown, we will use a piece of lightweight interfacing. For such large shapes, lightweight interfacing allows to turn the edges much quicker and easier. And that's it. That's all you need. So let's start from the tree trunk. We will turn the edges of the tree trunk using lightweight paper-backed fusible web. For the detailed tutorial on the turned edge applique with fusible web technique, follow the link in the video description below. So the first step is to trace the outline twice. I am using a disappearing fabric pen here. Thus, I can trace the outline directly on the fusible web. The markings will not show on the final applique. If you are using a regular pen or a pencil, however, trace the outline on the other side, meaning on the paper lining of the fusible web. In that case, the final tree trunk will be mirrored. Luckily, that does not harm an overall tree applique design, so you can do it either way. Next, use your paper scissors, not to damage your fabric scissors, and cut out both tree trunks. One of them we will fuse with the fabric in the next step, whereas the second one we will need only at the very last step before stitching. Next, put one of the cut out tree trunk shapes on the back side of the fabric. Position it at least 1/4 inch, which is around 7 mm away from the edge. Make sure the fusible web is facing the fabric and iron it on. Don't forget to check the ironing instructions for the fusible web you are using, as they may vary between different manufacturers. Once the fusible web is firmly attached to the backside of the fabric, cut out the shape with an additional 1/4 or 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. That would be around 4 to 7 mm wide. Next, find the inward curves. We have two of them at this particular tree trunk. Cut the seam allowance there all the way to the paper lining in the fusible web. Without that cut, folding the seam allowance becomes impossible, as everything will just curl and fold unevenly. So if you forget this step, you will quickly recognize it. Now comes the trickiest part of the tree trunk preparation, folding the seam allowance. First, we will fold the seam allowance with fingers, and only then we will attach it to the backside of the applique shape with an iron. Let's start from the trickiest part, a sharp outer point with an acute angle on the longer branch. There, fold the fabric at the top of the branch first and press it with a fingernail. Next, fold the fabric on the inner side of the branch. Also make a crease with the fingernail. Now, open the two folded fabrics and repeat the same, just in the opposite order. Take the fabric on the inner side of the branch and fold it again. Then, fold the fabric at the top of the branch again and press with your fingernail. This way you create all the needed fabric folding lines to nicely collect and fold the edges under a narrow outer point. So finally, just collect all the fabric and allow it to fold naturally. The rest is easy. Simply turn the fabric edge over the paper lining of the fusible web and press with a fingernail. Let's look at it again from a different angle. Fold the top seam allowance with your fingers and press. Then, fold the seam allowance on the side and press again. Now open the fold and repeat the folding from the other end. Press with your fingernails to make the crease. Finally, simply collect the fabric, allowing it to fold using pre-made folding lines. And finish the branch by turning the remaining seam allowance over the paper lining of the fusible web. Repeat the same folding routine on the other branch. Once all the fabric edges are turned under, it is time to attach them to the back of the applique shape. For that, remove the paper lining first and expose the fusible web at the back of the applique shape. Then, collect all the folded fabric at the tip of the branch and hold it in place with a tiny tool, such as seam ripper. Use your iron to press on the folded fabric and to melt the fusible web. Do the tips of the branches first. Then, go to the inward curve between the branches. There, come with an iron directly from the outside of the curve and sweep all those threads. You may need to repeat it several times. Finally, hold the fabric on the sides of the tree trunk with the help of a seam ripper and press with a hot iron. Throughout the procedure, be careful not to touch exposed fusible web directly with your iron, as it will stick to the hot plate and you may have really hard time cleaning it afterwards. So the tree trunk is almost done. The last step is to attach the second tree trunk that we have cut out of the fusible web at the very beginning. The second layer will help to keep several layers of the folded fabric in place and will aid the sewing procedure later on. So the tree trunk is done. Let's move on to the tree crown. We will turn the edges of the tree crown using a piece of lightweight interfacing. So first, trace the tree crown outline directly onto the interfacing. Next, put it on top of the right side of your fabric. I position the interfacing to fully enclose the birds, while keeping an eye on the outline to be at least 1/4 inch, which is around 7 mm, away from the edge of both fabric and interfacing. Now, simply stitch around the outline using a straight line stitch. Once that is done, cut out the shape with 1/4 inch, which is 7 mm seam allowance. I am using a pair of pinking shears, but you can do the same with your regular fabric scissors. Pinking shears help to reduce the fabric bulk a little and certainly make the cutout shape very pretty. Next, identify the deep points and inward curves. There, as we did for the tree trunk, cut into the seam allowance all the way to the stitch line. Be careful not to cut into the stitch line thread, but don't worry if you do. Simply get back to your sewing machine and make a few additional stitches around the cut to quickly fix the problem. Now, as the seam allowance is prompt for the turning, let's turn the applique shape right side out. For that, make a slit in the interfacing. Be careful not to cut into the fabric. And turn the shape inside out. Use your fingers to turn out as much as you can. To fully turn out the shape, use some pointy yet blunt tool. I am using the round edge of the wide blade on my dressmaker scissors. The other blade is too sharp and will pinch holes in the fabric, but the smooth edge of the wide blade is perfect to do the job. Place the scissor blade inside the applique shape and press onto the fabric with the rounded edge. Don't press the interfacing, as it is very easy to tear. Work all the way through the perimeter of the shape, fully pushing the fabric out. you may need to go several times through some of the segments. And that is it! The tree crown is complete. Now you have both the tree crown and the tree trunk ready to be attached. Following the same steps as described here, you can easily make any of the trees available in the Trees from the Forest applique pattern from Magic Little Dreams. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Happy appliquing, and see you in the next video. Bye!